Hi guys, my name's Alyssa and welcome back to my channel. I'm here to tell you that the fifth house is amazing. And that is your video for today. I'll see you next time. This fifth house video is taking me a long time because it is a great house to talk about. It's so great, it's almost boring. Like, really, I'm not even lying. I made this video already and I hated it because I bored myself to tears. And when you're in a weird mindset where you're not enjoying your fifth house, you really kind of resent your fifth house. And if I say you, I mean like me, not you, me. I'm like projecting because I'm talking to a webcam and I only see myself. Okay, so the fifth house is the house of your heart. And I'm going to say it's the house of your heart because I love to make things like into one word. And people always call it the house of pleasure, the house of children, the house of creativity, and whatever. What do all of these things have in common? And if they are done right, then they are done from your heart. And if your fourth house, which is the beginning of this quadrant, the fourth, fifth, and sixth house are in the second quadrant, the fourth house is about your soul, then it would only make sense that the succeedant house, the house that supports your soul, would be your heart. Your heart supports your soul. Your heart and your soul. Your heart and your soul, your yes and your no. That makes no sense. That's not even the song. Heart and soul. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. It's like, what's the sixth house going to be? I don't even know. It's going to ruin my whole thing here. The heart supports your soul. Everything that you love to do. It's everything that you should do. And everybody's heart is different. Everybody's heart needs different things for love, does different things for love, chooses to give birth to different types of creative endeavors and different types of children. And that's what you find in the fifth house. Now, succeedant, I said that earlier, means to succeed. It follows the angular house. And the angular houses are the most important houses, but they cannot live without the succeedant house. So your fourth house cannot live without your fifth house. Your soul cannot live without your heart. This means that your entire chart, if it's anchored at your soul, if it's anchored at your IC, this big angular house, you have to spend time creating. It doesn't matter if you have a planet in there or if you don't. It doesn't matter if you have Cancer there or if you have Capricorn there. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you create the way that you were born to create. I have Cancer in my fifth house, and my BFF was just here. She just left. She has Capricorn in her fifth house. And even just the way that I am to my child, because this is what I've created, is my child Remy, she was kind of looking at me like, man, Alyssa, I would not raise my child the way you raise your child. So obviously people are like, oh my gosh, Alyssa, your kid needs routine. Yeah, I have Cancer and Leo in my fifth house. You're going to tell Cancer and Leo about routine? That's cool. You do what you got to do. I don't got Capricorn in my fifth house. You create from this place. What if you have Scorpio in your fifth house? It would mean that in order for you to have fun, you'd have to like solve mysteries, right? You'd have to like dive down into deep and darkness of despair. That would be fun for you. That means that when you have children, your children are going to take on Scorpio traits because you're going to give them Scorpio traits. If you write a book or make an album, it's going to be like a Scorpio. That's what you're going to give birth to. And that's why they say your fifth house represents your children. I have a Leo sun with a Cancer stellium. He falls right in my fifth house, and so does his Cancer stellium. This is because he's learning about life through me. And so he takes on these traits that are from my fifth house because that is where I give him my joy. And so you see other people with kids and they're going to raise them differently. And it's not just all your fifth house. I mean, it's also your moon and everything. But just this direct fifth house line, because it is your creativity. You are giving birth to something. The fifth house also represents sex. Fifth house is fun sex. It's creative sex. It's having a good time with sex. And it's writing, it's reading, it's drawing, it's painting. Not because the fifth house represents your abilities in that area, because the fifth house represents what you want to do for fun. If you are like my BFF and have Capricorn in your fifth house, your idea of fun is probably a lot different than the normal idea of fun. You have Aquarius in your 5th house. You probably feel like, just normal amounts of fun is kind of ridiculously boring, and you have to change it up, be original. Now think about the rulers of these signs that I'm saying. You have Uranus, which rules Aquarius, and that falls in your 5th house. This means you don't just get to have fun. You have to shake it up a ton. You have to do something weird. You gotta be rebellious for rebellious sake because it's fun. You might get a bazillion tattoos because you're having a fun time with pain, and that's how you have fun, through pain, not even through the ultimate expression of your art here, but because you're like, look I have fun through pain. And you may not even like pain, but when it comes to some sort of creative expression, it's going to be different because Uranus is there. But what if Saturn's there? People always say Saturn mean you don't have children. And that's not true. There's lots of people who have children with Saturn there. Sometimes it means you have a child later on in life. Sometimes it could mean that your child gives you a lot of lessons, and whatever you create, it's a lot harder than you thought it was going to be. But ultimately, it depends on the lesson you need to learn, because Saturn belongs to you. Saturn is your own karmic lesson. What do you need to learn in this life? And if it's in your 5th house, it definitely strains you from having a good time. Definitely makes it so it's hard to have fun. And maybe one day you realize, that's how I have fun. I have fun through work. I don't want to have kids because I don't think I could have fun having kids. I just want to work. And so having Saturn in the 5th house doesn't necessarily mean you can't have children. It might just mean it's a conscious choice that you enjoy working. You work hard to play hard. That's your life and that's what you like. But maybe you do want to have a kid, because there's other things that say you're natural nurture. You have, a Cancer moon, and it's like trining Venus, and you have all these other things. You can have a kid, doesn't mean that you won't. Sometimes I can be super fatalist in astrology, and sometimes I'm just like, come on. Your Saturn is for you. It's not about your kids. It's about what you need to learn. If that means that you have to learn a few things before you can have a kid, then that's what that means. If you have to go through a few steps, because, Saturn's all about delayed gratification. Pluto is life and death transformation, right? So most people with Pluto in their 5th house are very creative. And they go through spouts of uber amounts of creativity and then no more creativity, because it's life and death. It's regeneration. They might be on one roll, I want to do this, and then they're like, oh wait, I want to go do this now. This is then how you act in your creative expression. You might just start things and destroy them. You might get on one bandwagon and then just destroy that and leave that and go on to something new and creative. If you think about where the 5th house develops in your life, it develops in your childhood. Like when you're a kid and you just play. You think about yourself. You don't think about other people. You don't think about your friends and what they think. That's your 11th house. We're not there yet. We're in your 5th house where this is developing. You're thinking about you and you're happy. You don't understand other people. Pluto is destructive. It comes in like a bomb. Sometimes Mars does too. I notice Mars and Pluto, they mean two different things. Mars is a lot of anger and aggression and even passion and a little bit of bullying, but Pluto is ultimate death and rebirth, and we all have Pluto somewhere. So one of your houses is being destroyed constantly so it can be reborn. And if that's your 5th house, and that's your childhood, and if there is a malefic planet there, and malefic normally pertains to Saturn and Mars, I definitely see Pluto and Uranus there as being malefic. You don't get to have a normal childhood. You were growing up dealing with abuse. When you grow up and deal with abuse, you don't even get to have a normal adulthood. And I just want to say that if this is something that you have and it's something that, you went through, that keeping it inside is the way to wreck your 5th house, to wreck your happiness and your pleasure and your excitement, because it will just explode within you and you need to get it out. That's why they say you have to talk about this stuff. You have to get a counselor, or you have to let somebody know. Problem is, when this stuff happens, most people don't want to say it because they're so ashamed. You can't live without your soul. You can't then live without your heart. And if your heart is broken, you can't go on. You can't have a happy life. You have to get your expression out. If there's something bad in your 5th house, something that destroyed your childhood, your 5th house needs you to talk about it, to express it, to write it out, to sing it out, to paint it out, to get it out of you. Your creative expression It needs to be done out of love. And if you don't love what you're doing and what you're giving, then it's not fun. It's not a good time. And you're not enjoying yourself. You have to look inside your fifth house to see what it is that you need to make yourself happy. The fifth house is about you. It's about what you like. It's not about asking other people what they want to eat for dinner. Sometimes it's about just going out by yourself and getting what you want to eat for dinner. Going to see that movie that you want to see. Something that makes you happy. Because you deserve to be happy. I think that these malefic planets can make you feel like you don't deserve to be happy. You don't understand how to love yourself enough to allow yourself to be happy. Well, the fifth house is a good time, but not for everybody. But doesn't mean you can't go into it and turn that around and take the sad things that happened and make them better. Lastly, what happens if your sun is in your fifth house? If your sun then is your ego, is your essence, and it's in your fifth house, this means that is your essence. It's your need to create. You don't create, you don't live. You aren't constantly giving people your art, you're not alive. Your sun can be put there, they say, because you're the favorite in the family. And I'm not just talking like immediate family, I'm talking like family. You're like the light of your extended family's life. And in a way, you might have been spoiled or given everything. I get it. And they are just given the ability to express themselves. And so that's what you have to do. A lot of people with their sun in the fifth house really feel like in order to move on with their life, they have to have children. And maybe it's not like a real kid. Maybe it is just like a book or an album or something. You need to get it out of you, and that's your baby. But it does actually literally mean for a lot of people that they just feel like they need to have children. I don't understand why I have to go to college if I just want to have babies. Hopefully sooner than later. And then they like have babies and they're like, I can do anything now. But it's like this tick. And it's because of the creative expression, and children come out from that. And they say you can find your children in your fifth house. You know, you have any planets in your fifth house, they're probably going to show up in your children's chart as very strong placements. Say you have Mercury conjunct Pluto in your fifth house, you're probably going to have a child who's a Gemini in the eighth house. Not like probably, it could be something like that. You know, obviously I have Cancer ruling my fifth house. I have a Leo kid, but he's got a stellium in the fourth house in Cancer. Now, say your moon is in your fifth house. Sometimes, you know, your moon represents your mother, and if the fifth house is over creativity, they say that it can represent that your mother might have been a little narcissistic, enjoying her own creative expression. Sometimes, though, it really means your mother was just overly exuberant and Leo-ish and really built into that creativity was like the greatest thing ever, and wanted you to express yourself through like instruments and all this other stuff. And that's why you might have a moon aspect in your fifth house or moon in the fifth house. It's a mother that was really about the arts. And so now that's where your emotions lie. That's the thing that give you joy, is this fifth house thing. I want to create things emotionally. I want to give you my emotions. And yeah, so I didn't obviously touch on everything, but that's what Twitter's for, okay guys? So follow me on Twitter, it's linked below. So are the other videos up into this one. If you haven't watched them yet, they might give you more information that you're thinking about asking me. So I will see you guys later. Okay, bye.